Hey guys, it's Sam, and I wanted to do another sort of live stream here while I had a short break at work, talking about playing your RPGs rules as written versus homebrewing some of the rules, and maybe the case for raw or the case for playing homebrew as well. And this has come up because I've been thinking a lot lately about how I want to run my games in the future and what types of games I want to run. And pretty much with every game that I've run, I've always sort of homebrewed it, right? I've always sort of done... Sorry, I'm trying to see if there's some good lighting here, and it doesn't look like there is, so I apologize for that. I've always done things like using like my own homebrew rules when I didn't like a certain aspect or I didn't understand a certain aspect of rules in games. And I think that that's okay. And in many games, they encourage you to do that. But what I'm curious about is whether that diminishes from the experience of the game. Because I've been thinking lately that, when these game rules are written, they're written with a purpose, right? They're written because the game designer believes that by using those rules, that is how the game should be played. And most of them make, allowances for you saying, hey, listen, if this isn't your play style, or if this isn't working for your group, feel free to change it. And so part of me agrees with that, right? Part of me thinks, yeah, that makes sense. I like the idea that I can go in and homebrew things. And I think in systems like, original Dungeons and Dragons, where they had very few rules, there might be situations in which you need the flexibility to be able to homebrew something because there wasn't a rule. But that's a little different, right? What I'm talking about specifically is when there are rules in place for something and you either choose not to use them or you choose to modify them in some way. And so I wanted to talk about that because I don't think that that's inherently a bad thing, like I said, but I've been reading through Basic Fantasy RPG, and I'm thinking that I might want to try running it. And there's a few hesitations that I've been having, for example, I really don't like the old, 5 saving throws. I don't like the percentile skill system for thieves. I think it's clunky, stuff like that. What I would do is for saving throws, I like the way Whitebox does it, where it's a single saving throw. Even 3rd edition, where they had Fortitude, Reflex, and Will saves, I'm okay with that. But I have to assume that when the author decided to stick with the 5 different saving throws, that he didn't do it just as an homage to original D&D. Maybe he did, but when he wrote that book, I'm getting the impression that his goal was not to exactly clone, I think it was basic D&D at that point, or BECMI, I think is what it was closest to. He did that with Iron Falcon, but with Basic Fantasy, it sort of took 3rd edition D&D and simplified it. So he had license there. And what I'm curious about is why he chose not to do the 3 saving throws, and why he chose to make the thief class, the way it was more in the original editions. And so that was curious, right? And then I was looking at how it actually gives more hit points for monsters than it does for treasure. Giving XP for treasure was an optional rule in Basic Fantasy, right? But the characters aren't any stronger in Basic Fantasy than they would be in some of the original D&D. So to me, it didn't make as much sense, because if you're incentivizing killing monsters or defeating monsters to get XP, but your characters aren't any better able to handle it, that doesn't make sense to me. That seems like a design flaw, right? But there must be a reason for it. Also, the standard for character creation is you roll 3d6 down the line for your attributes. You pick those in order, and then you kind of decide your class based on that. And then what they did in Basic Fantasy was they separated race and class. So you can play a race, like if you wanted to play a halfling, for example, you could do that. But the halfling only allows you, I think the halfling you can actually play maybe all of the character classes. I think with the elf, you can only play a fighter or a magic user. You can't play a cleric and you can't play a thief, but whatever. It's not race as class. It's just that you can play this race, but you can only pick certain classes to go with it. I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. But so I'm reading through this, right? And I'm thinking, man, I want to change this, and I would change this, and I would change that. And the rules encourage that. They say that's fine, right? And, I'm kind of comparing it to White Box, fantastic medieval adventure game by Charlie Mason, which is sort of based on Swords and Wizardry White Box. And right in there, too, it says the same thing. This is very rules light, so go ahead and feel free to change anything that you need to change. And that's cool, and I like that. And I will do that. But what I'm wondering is, the rules were put in there for a reason. Maybe I should try to stick with them. And I've never done that before. I don't think I've ever played or run a game in which I ran it exactly rules as written. So I think I'm going to try that. I want to see what the experience is going to be like. I want to see what running a game, especially like old school D&D, running it raw like that, how that will influence the game, whether I will find it to be more difficult or not. So we'll have to see. I'm thinking about trying this with some of my other games as well, like particularly with the Star Wars RPG by Fantasy Flight Games. I think I want to try running that totally raw. I mostly do, but I've taken a lot of liberties in some of my games with some of the things that you can do. And I think that I want to see how it will work if we run it straight by the book. But that being said, I don't ever want to be in a position where I have to say, hold on, let me look up the rule for this. I think that I'm more likely to say, okay, I'm going to make a ruling here. And then, we can change things next time if we need to. So anyway, what do you guys think? I know Jason from Dark Age of Roleplay did a video on this that was really good, talking about how he homebrews everything, or he used to, and he's trying to kind of play a little bit more raw in some of his games. But let me know what you guys think about this, whether you prefer to play it really rules as written and try to stick to that as much as you can, or if you have no problem saying, no, I'm going to homebrew things because, I have a certain style that I like and that's how it goes. So anyway, love your thoughts. Go ahead and like the video. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment. I want to hear from you. I want to interact with you. That's kind of why I make these videos. So anyway, happy gaming.